Alright, y'all, welcome back to our best sounding car series. This one is a car I don't really know much about, so we're going to learn a little bit about it probably towards the end of the video, but definitely hear the sound of this. This has been one of the most requested vehicles for a long time. Finally getting to it. This is the BMW M1. So, yeah, I don't know much about this. Of course, I've heard of like the M3, the M5. You know, those are very relevant street cars across the world, even here in the U.S. But the M1, on the other hand, is not something I don't think I've ever seen in person, ever. I think I've maybe only seen this in some video games or something, maybe throughout the years. But this was suggested very recently by Midgard, but I may mention that it's been suggested dozens of times by many of you, so thank you for the suggestion. We're going to be taking a look at a few small clips from various different videos, so these will all be linked in the description. Make sure to check out the whole videos and check out these awesome channels. We'll take a look at some flybys, some in-car, and then, of course, some info about the car as well. So strap in, have fun, and let's hear some BMW M1 action. Not gonna lie, this thing's pretty sexy. This is definitely one of the more exotic BMWs I've ever seen. I feel like BMW, at least until very recently, I'm not a fan of like the really new ones, but I feel like most eras BMWs have a very iconic look, and they're true to their brand. Like, you know, they've always had this individual design philosophy, and usually that's with either, you know, like two-door, like coupes, or of course sedans. Wagons, right? I don't really think of this shape when I think of BMW, so this is kind of refreshing. But I gotta say, it's pretty cool. Look at that. This is mid-engine. Okay, that is different for sure. That sounds so good. Love the old race cars with the sideways mounted tachometer, of course. But it makes perfect sense because they're going to be in the high revs pretty much the whole time on the track. So you're going to want to see up here quite easily. You don't want to be looking down here. I always thought that was pretty cool. Wow. Dude, that thing is awesome. Okay, so what are we working with? Looks like a inline six-cylinder, yeah? Looks so clean and really nice back there. Wow, a mid-engine inline six. I mean, BMW definitely knows how to make inline sixes, and there's something almost mystical about inline sixes. This is coming from, you know, honestly an open-minded car guy, but classically a V8 guy, right? I love V8s, like a lot of Americans do. And I have to say that inline sixes, not V6s, inline sixes are usually almost a safe bet for sounding great. Like, they just have this smooth, rev-happy, you know, mystical sound. They always sound good. And they sound more exotic than they should, if that makes sense. I have a feeling this is going to be like that. Ooh, we got ITBs. Look at all the nice braiding and duct work. This thing is a beast, for sure. Look at that. Oh, that looks so good. I'm almost 99% sure it's from the 80s. And boy, does it just kind of run with that look. That is an iconic 80s. This could be straight out of like an old video game. Like, this looks awesome. Oh my goodness. Oh man, this is gonna be good for sure. There's a shift pattern, by the way. They must have that classic BMW where, like, I think first is down, and then you go second through fourth is over here, so it actually makes more sense on track. Damn. Oh, wow. I told you, this sounds way more exotic than it should. That's a Beamer? That thing looks awesome. I think this car has some of the best proportions I've ever seen. I know this is a best sounding series. This, I'm not even kidding. This car's from the 80s and it's a BMW. This might be one of the best looking cars I've ever seen. The low nose like that, it still has the iconic BMW kidneys. They're really small, but they're there, so you know it's a Beamer. And like the aero work, the wide stance and so low. And the spoiler somehow like really works on here. This thing just looks good. It looks so good. And it's spitting flames. Oh my God. The stance on that thing is perfect. I mean, it looks like it handles great. Wow. Jeez, that is spitting mad flames. It would look good in any color, any livery. Here's some from Hill Climb. God, it sounds incredible. It really does. It's a 3.5 liter inline six. NA, of course. There is something beautiful about naturally aspirated motors, right? The world of turbo this and twin turbos and, you know, superchargers, prochargers, right? It's still really refreshing to see a car that just sounds incredible, revs to the moon, and makes a lot of power naturally. It's awesome. So I love to see that. Weight, 1,000 kilograms, seems really, really light for sure. 470 horsepower, and this puppy revs to 9,000 RPM. So this does rev high. That's got to be an absolute freaking blast to drive. God, it sounds so good. Jeez, that thing looks good too. Wow. Beautiful area this is filmed in. I don't know where, but it's gorgeous. But the downshifts, dude. Wow. Hear it idle? Oh my God. Oh man. Okay, this is turning out better than expected. This is going to be a contender up there for... God, I feel like I've been saying that a lot lately, but we've really been finding some gems. This might be in the top 3 best sounding cars I've ever seen and heard in this series. We've heard some greats. Here's some more Onboard. Oh my God, it sounds so good shifting. Wow, can you imagine the thrill of rolling through the gears on this thing? Ooh, shaky camera alert. In case you're sensitive, be warned. Jeez, that is wicked, man. Wow. Oh, is that one of the best tracks ever, too, by the way? God, that's awesome. Sounds so good. There's two of them now. Does that other one sound like twice as loud? Oh my God. That's freaking awesome. I mean, look at these in all the different liveries. This one is freaking clean. Look at that. What a weird color combo. I like it. Black, red, and like some sort of, I don't know if you would call that like a gold or a bronze. I can't really tell, but it's freaking cool. Look at that one. Like, they just look awesome, all of them. I think that one might be my favorite we've seen the whole time. But I would take any of them, of course. I would take a plain white one. That one's cool because that's like the classic M colors, you know? Jeez, those things are mean looking, dude. Interesting how it has two BMW logos. Wow. This is just so crazy to me. It's just funny because, you know, I've always been a car guy. Like, I was a car kid, right? Like, I was always into early, like, Need for Speed games on the PC, like Windows 98 or whatever. And I was only like 5 or 6 years old. And, you know, I didn't know what I was doing, but it was cool. I remember, you know, images of, you know, stuff you see as a kid. I remember, like, seeing Aston Martins and BMWs and Jaguars and Mercedes, like, in games. And back then, of course, I didn't know what they were, other than my dad telling me, like, oh, yeah, those are cool cars. They're, like, German or they're British or whatever. Like, they're not even from here, right, in the U.S. So I've always seen, like, older BMW, you know, like I said, like 5 Series, 3 Series, 7 Series even, right? I remember the first, I think it was the first Transporter movie, right? He was in a BMW 7 Series. I thought those were freaking awesome. I guess I've always had this image of BMW with the big sedans, and they do a great job at that. Like, that's kind of what they're known for, right? Especially with the M cars. I guess this is really an interesting experience seeing this, because this is just not what I think of with BMW, a mid-engine, low-slung, just kind of race car, right? I don't know if you would say supercar is probably the wrong word, but I think you kind of know what I mean. Like, this is just not what your typical BMW looks like. It's really, really cool. So basically, this car spawned from 1979, which is crazy. I thought this was like a late 80s car. This is actually from technically late 70s, very early 80s. And this thing was part of its own racing series. So obviously not like rally, not Formula One, not even touring car stuff, but rather a series simply known as ProCar, hence the name BMW M1 ProCar. And it was a one-make auto racing series. So it was just all of these BMW M1s racing together. That's very interesting. I did not even know that was a thing. But they did have drivers from different series come in to, you know, pit against each other. So I didn't know that Niki Lauda, the Austrian F1 driver, he actually won the inaugural championship for the BMW M1 ProCar series. Also, Brazilian Nelson Piquet won in 1980. So, I mean, some big names were in this. What's super crazy is, I was going to ask this earlier. I think I just forgot. I definitely thought of it. I was going to say that, was this a road car at any time? And it was. This is a picture of an M1 road car. I didn't even know this was a thing. So if anyone wants to elaborate on this, have you owned one of these? Did you know someone that owned one of these? Like, have you driven one? I mean, how was the road car? It obviously looks more like a road car than the race car does. albeit it still looks really good. I think the race car looks perfect, so I think the race car naturally looks better. But this is pretty cool as well. It's got that early 80s, sports car charm. They're just really futuristic and bizarre, and I love it. I imagine this is nowhere near as fast as the race car as well, although it probably touts an inline-six mid-engine, just like the race car, so that's pretty cool. Probably makes less power. So they had to make 400 of these, though, homologation cars. So I'm assuming when I asked, have you seen these? Well, maybe chances are maybe not. I don't think these were very common as daily drivers in the 80s and 90s. These seem like they're very rare. I imagine these might fetch big money, though. And indeed, the road car does use the same M88 inline six or straight six. But, of course, the ProCar is going to be very, modified and make a lot more power. In those numbers, by the way, 470 like we saw earlier, 470 horsepower in the race car, 277 in the road-going car, so quite a bit more. The 5-speed ZF gearbox housing from the road car was retained, but multiple gear ratios allowed, of course, as well as its own oil cooler. And then, of course, gutted interior, roll bar, totally, better and adjustable anti-roll bars, suspension, all that stuff. What's crazy is this car did have a top speed of up to 193 miles per hour with the proper gear ratios and setup. And acceleration from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour was 4.3 seconds. That's insane. What is funny is it says each M1 Pro car costs approximately $60,000 US. Now, I don't know where that random number comes from. I don't know if that's even accurate, but if that's accurate, that sounds really cheap. 60 grand for a unbelievable race car that looks good and might be one of the best sounding cars ever. That sounds like a deal, kind of, to me. Although, adjusted for inflation, I guess 60 grand back in 1980 would have been a lot more than it is now. And then again, I don't know if that's even correct, but there is the car that Niki Lauda raced in the 1979 Monaco race. Looks awesome. Wow. I can't believe that you could see this running around in 1979. This car is very kind of futuristic to me and just a beast. So yeah, guys, that is the BMW M1 Pro car. Very exotic and unique. One of the most unique BMWs I've ever heard about and learned about. I mean, wow, that was awesome. Thank you for the suggestions. This is definitely right now sitting in the top 3. It has to be in the best sounding cars I've ever heard, and that's really saying something. This thing is just S tier, just grade A sound. It's exotic, it's smooth, it's naturally aspirated. It revs to 9,000 RPM. The downshifts, the upshifts, everything about this thing is insane. The idle, right? The revs. It's just a crazy machine. The in-car sound is just incredible. And the fact that it's classic enough where it's still an H pattern, manual transmission with the clutch, it just adds to the fun. I think this would be an incredibly fun car to drive. And quite frankly, for race car standards, at least from what I see, I think it might be a relatively, I don't mean easy, I don't think it's easy, but a relatively easier race car to drive. It looks like it's very well planted and very wide, lots of rubber on the ground, and I feel like this thing would just handle and turn and shift and everything pretty predictably. At least that's what I think. Some cars, like some of these crazy high horsepower Porsches and stuff that we've seen recently, straight up look scary. Like the Porsche 917 is a car that I'm sitting here drooling over. I think it's so freaking cool. And at the same time, it's so scary. Like, as a diehard car guy that loves speed, I wouldn't even want to jump into that thing. Yeah, like, I'm scared of that car. Whereas this car, I'm not scared of. I want to strap in and, like, take it for a rip around the track, if that makes sense. This car is really cool. So yeah, I can't wait to hear your thoughts on this. Definitely tell me down below. Make sure to check that description and check out the links to these videos. They were all much longer and really, really worth checking out. So make sure to check those out and their channels as well. And keep up your awesome suggestions. I appreciate you being here. And that's about it for this one. My name is Ian. You're watching IWrocker. And until next time, y'all. Catch you later.